When I was little, I thought the scariest thing in the world was monsters under my bed. But it turns out the real monsters, they didn't hide, they smiled at you. It was an early grey morning. The cold wind blew across the empty train station. Emily clutched her mother's hand tightly, her small fingers trembling.
"Mommy, do you really have to go?"
She whispered, her voice cracking. Sarah bent down, smoothing Emily's hair gently.
"I have to, but it's only for a little while. Aunt Clara will take good care of you, I promise."
Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, but she tried to be brave.
"I'll be good. I'll wait for you."
Sarah hugged her tightly, not wanting to let go. The loud whistle of the train forced them apart.
"Call me every day, okay?"
Emily cried out as the train doors closed. From inside the train, Sarah watched Emily's small figure standing alone on the platform, growing smaller and smaller. Emily stood silently at the front door, clutching her small suitcase with both hands. The house smelled faintly of cleaning products and something stale. Her heart was pounding. Aunt Clara opened the door, arms crossed, her eyes scanning Emily up and down, before stepping aside without much warmth.
"Come in. Wipe your shoes first. I don't want dirt all over my floor,"
she said sharply. Emily quickly wiped her shoes on the mat and stepped inside. Her footsteps barely making a sound on the wooden floor. Lily, Clara's daughter, was sitting on the staircase, chewing gum loudly. She narrowed her eyes at Emily and whispered with a sneer,
"She looks like a lost puppy."
Clara pretended not to hear and walked toward the kitchen, gesturing for Emily to follow.
"Listen carefully. In this house, everyone must work. You're not here for free."
Emily nodded, her voice soft and careful.
"Yes, Aunt Clara. Every day, you'll do these chores. Wash the dishes, sweep the floors, fold the laundry, and clean the windows. Understand?"
Emily's hands tightened around her suitcase.
"Yes, Aunt Clara,"
she repeated. Lily stood at the bottom of the stairs, twirling a strand of her hair with mock curiosity.
"So, can you even clean properly? Or do you just mess everything up?"
Lily asked, smirking. Emily looked down, avoiding Lily's gaze, not daring to answer. Clara's voice cut through the tension like a knife.
"You'll start right after dinner. No excuses."
That evening, after a hurried and silent meal where Emily barely touched her food, Clara tossed a mop at her.
"Start with the living room, and don't leave a single speck of dust."
Emily dragged the mop across the floor as Lily lounged on the couch, watching TV and munching on chips, occasionally tossing crumbs onto the freshly cleaned floor, just to make Emily work harder. When Emily finished, her hands were red and raw from scrubbing. Clara inspected the floor with a critical eye, then scoffed.
"Barely acceptable. You'll do better tomorrow."
Exhausted, Emily dragged herself to the small room she was given, a narrow storage room with a thin mattress on the floor. She sat there quietly, listening to the muffled laughter of Clara and Lily from the living room. Tears pricked her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away, whispering to herself,
"I have to be strong."
The next morning, Emily slipped into her worn-out shoes and hurried to school, her backpack hanging loosely from one shoulder. The cold morning air bit at her skin as she trudged along the cracked sidewalks. When she arrived at school, she kept her head low, hoping to blend in, but Lily and her group of friends were already waiting near the front gates.
"Look who finally showed up,"
Lily called out loudly, drawing the attention of nearby students. Emily's steps faltered, but she forced herself to keep walking. Lily and her friends moved to block her way, smirking.
"You know, I heard she's living in a broom closet now. Maybe she even sleeps with the mops.
The girls burst into cruel laughter. Emily clutched the straps of her backpack tighter.
Please, I don't want any trouble.
She whispered. Lily stepped closer, towering over Emily with a mocking smile.
Trouble? You're the trouble, Emily. Always bringing your poor, pathetic energy everywhere.
One of the girls knocked Emily's books from her arms, scattering papers onto the wet ground. Oops, she said sweetly, feigning innocence. Emily knelt quickly, gathering her things, her hands trembling. She could feel the other students watching, whispering, some laughing, some looking away awkwardly. Lily leaned down, her voice cold and low.
Don't think you're part of this school. Stay out of our way.
Without another word, they walked off, giggling. Emily stayed crouched for a moment longer, her heart pounding painfully against her chest. She wiped a tear before it could fall, then stood up and hurried into the building, wishing she could disappear. In the classroom, Emily slid into her seat at the back. She kept her eyes on her notebook, pretending to be absorbed in her work as whispers and giggles continued around her. The teacher walked in, calling the class to attention. But the heaviness in Emily's chest didn't lift. She gripped her pencil tightly, willing herself to focus, telling herself over and over,
just make it through today. Just make it through.
After a miserable morning, the lunch bell finally rang. Emily sat alone at the far end of the cafeteria, poking at her small lunch, just a piece of bread and an apple. She kept her head down, hoping no one would notice her. Suddenly, a tray clattered onto the table across from her. Emily flinched, expecting more teasing. But when she looked up, a boy with messy brown hair and a warm smile was sitting there. His name was Ethan, one of the quieter kids from another class.
Hey, you mind if I sit here?
Emily blinked, surprised.
I guess,
she murmured, barely audible. Ethan took a big bite of his sandwich, pretending not to notice her hesitation. After a moment, he pulled a small bag of cookies from his backpack and slid it toward her across the table.
My mom always packs too much. You want some?
Emily stared at the cookies, her hands frozen. No one had offered her anything in so long. Carefully, she took one.
Thanks,
she whispered, her voice cracking a little. Ethan smiled again, this time softer.
Don't let those girls bother you. They're just not worth your time.
Emily's chest tightened. She looked down, hiding the tears stinging her eyes.
I try, but it's hard.
Ethan leaned back in his chair, balancing it on two legs.
You're tougher than you think. You're here, aren't you?
For the first time in weeks, Emily let out a small laugh, shaky, but real. Ethan grinned.
See? You already won today.
They ate the rest of lunch together in quiet companionship. The cafeteria still buzzed with chatter and noise. But for once, Emily didn't feel invisible. Someone had seen her. Someone had cared. As the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, Ethan gave her a quick wave.
See you around, Emily.
She watched him walk away, holding the little bag of cookies tightly in her hand. For the first time in what felt like forever, her heart felt just a little lighter. Maybe, just maybe, things could get better. That evening, Emily sat at the tiny desk in her cramped room. The single light bulb above flickered slightly, casting shadows across the peeling walls. Her school books were pushed aside, replaced by a piece of lined paper. Her hand trembled slightly as she began to write.
Dear Mom, I miss you every day. I try to be strong like you told me. Sometimes it's really hard here. But today, something nice happened.
She paused, the pen tip lingering midair, before writing about Ethan, the cookies, and how someone finally looked at her like she mattered. Footsteps approached. She quickly folded the letter and slipped it into her math book. The door creaked open. Aunt Clara stood there, arms crossed.
Did you finish the dishes?
Emily nodded.
Yes, Aunt Clara.
The woman grunted.
Then get to bed. Tomorrow, you'll mop the floors before school.
Emily stayed quiet.
Yes, Aunt Clara.
As the door shut again, she exhaled, not in fear, but relief. Somehow, she wasn't crushed anymore. Not completely. The next morning, just before leaving for school, she tucked the letter carefully into her bag. She didn't know when she'd send it, but she would, someday soon, at school. As she stepped through the gate, she spotted Ethan leaning against the wall, sipping from a juice box. He caught her eye and gave her a nod.
You all right today?
Emily caught it, smiling.
Yeah, better than yesterday.
Good. One day at a time, right?
She walked beside him toward the school doors, the weight on her shoulders feeling a little lighter with each step.